Well, good morning. It is Wednesday, January 25th, 2017. It's 9 o'clock, and we're gathered for our weekly Board of Commissioners meeting. We start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That makes it official. Well, we have no one taking advantage of our opportunity for public comments, so we will move right to the consent calendar. And since there's no choice, Commissioner Cameron, if you would, please.
It's good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under Business Services, I move our consent calendar. Under Business Services, approve recommendation to adopt and establish a new classification, Economic Development Coordinator number 167. Under Community Services, approve an order reappointing Gail Casarado Dottie and Jim Seymour to the Children and Families Commission with terms ending January 31st, 2020. Also under Community Services, approve amendment number 1 to the sublease agreement with Oregon State University to modify the service district's rental of Farm Bureau building. Under Finance, approve a quitclaim deed to convey real property tax ID R73766 located at 3875 Woodward Court Northeast, Kaiser, to Zach Nolan. Under Health, approve amendment number 3 to the contract for services for Jeffrey Ludy, MD, to add $73,000 in funding to extend through December 31st, 2017, to provide medical services and oversight to the Alcohol and Drug Treatment Program. Under Public Works, approve an order reappointing Richard Walker to the Marion County Water Quality Advisory Committee with the term ending January 31st, 2021. Under the Tax Office, consider approval of a property tax refund in the amount of $27,417.07 to Loretta LLC. Also under the Tax Office, consider approval of an order to designate the Woodburn Independent as the newspaper for publication of 2017 tax foreclosure list.
And I'll second that motion. Any further discussion?
Good.
Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we have a few action items today, and then we'll continue a public hearing. The first action item is under Community Service. We consider approval of an order that distributes Oregon lottery funds through the 2016-17 business development grants to the following: Detroit Lake Marina, $35,000, Canes Marina, $20,000, and Sandy M. Ice Company, $25,000. And Sarah Cavalier, you're in place and ready to go, and if you would just go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the viewers, my name is Sarah Cavazos, Management Analyst with Community Services Department. A little bit of background on the proposal for an order to allocate funds. Community Services oversees our Oregon Lottery Fund for economic development purposes, and part of that fund, we allocate money to the Business Development Grant Program. And the Business Development Grants fund private sector business in target industries to support job retention and job growth through business retention and expansion. So today we have before you a request to approve an order to fund 3 grant proposals. For fiscal year 16-17, we have $150,000 allocated for the business development grants, and we are working on a rolling application deadline. So we're accepting applications and reviewing them as they come in. In January, we had 3 proposals go before the Economic Development Advisory Board for consideration. Those proposals were from the Detroit Lake Marina, Canes Marina, and then the Sandy M. Ice Company. So the board reviewed them, the Economic Development Advisory Board reviewed them, scored them, went through a pretty thorough vetting, and have recommended all 3 proposals for funding. So I want to acknowledge this is the first time that this is coming before the commissioners. So if you have questions that you would like to dive into a little bit deeper, feel free to ask those. But our projects that we have for the Detroit Lake Marina, you guys are aware of the dire situation out there with tourism, with the lake levels being low and shortening the tourism season and having a pretty negative impact on the business revenue and economy out in that region. And we have a project that Oregon Solutions has been working, Oregon Solutions. Regional Solutions has been working in the canyon alongside the county, trying to figure out solutions to stimulate the economy and business out there. And one of the things that they've recently tackled is ways to expand the use of the lake with the boat marinas by extending the boating and tourism season when the water levels are low. So the solution that came up is that they have received, both marinas have gone through a permitting process with the Oregon Marine Board and all other required entities for the multiple federal bureaus that are managing the federal lands out there that impact the marinas. They have been approved for permitting to go through a dredging and gangplank pilings installation at both marinas that will allow them to have the docks adjust to access water levels when they're low and potentially extend the tourism boating season by 5 weeks in low water level or in regular water levels, and then maintain the regular boating season when their water levels are high or low, so that there is no adverse effect to the businesses out there. Both projects have received grant funds from the Marine Board to help fund the projects. They are rather spendy, so they have come to the Business Development Grant Program requesting funds. Detroit Lake Marina has requested $35,000 to help fund the construction of the gangplank system, and Cairns Marina has requested $20,000. And we had some really great conversation around the regional impact of these businesses to promote tourism, support the existing businesses in that whole canyon region. And looking at this project as a long-term investment because it is quasi-public-private partnership with the lakes being publicly owned and then the businesses being private. So both of those projects were recommended for funding at the full requested amount. The third proposal was from the Santiam Ice Company, and that is one of very few businesses that are located in Idana, which is a very small community just up from Detroit, and they are requesting they requested $27,500 to expand their ice production capacity, and the grant review committee went through several different aspects of the proposal and recommended that the project be funded at $25,000 instead of $27,500 due to our grant guidelines of the ratio of funds granted per job created. So just briefly, the Detroit Lake Marina their project is going to be creating 4 new jobs over the 2-year period and allow the retention of 8 jobs during that 4-year period as well, or 2-year period. And then the Cairns Marina is going to create 6 new jobs and retain 10 jobs over the 2-year period. And the Santiam Ice Company is going to be creating 6 new jobs and retaining 3 jobs. So it fits within our guidelines of job creation, and given the region and the low employment levels and low businesses, it came highly recommended that these projects be funded. So we're asking for questions, input from you, and then hopefully an approval of an order to fund.
Thank you. Comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know that all 3 of us have been active in the support of the canyon and the economic development for the last, well, even before I got here. You had the economic study done, and this is an example of, and I want to stress this, that last summer we actually had Congressman Schrader with us. We took a tour of the lake on the boat with him. James LaBar from the governor's office was with us, and it's an example of our role. We're talking about our role and how we're helping here, but there's a much bigger, how do I want to say this, convening process that's going forward to help with this particular area of our economy and in the canyon. The marinas, and a good example is the gentleman who owns the Detroit Lake Marina. He also is the owner of the Santiam Ice Company, and I'm not sure that Sarah said that, but you get in these small rural areas, you've got to find, as a business person, he's got to be able to have more things going on to be able to support those employees and the things he's got going on. He actually delivered the ice to the state fair this year from up on Idana. So there's a lot of good things happening in that little community, and a lot of effort from the federal delegation and the state support, and now the county support. So I really am proud of the work that's being done. And Sarah, thank you for the EDAB.
Just for the record, you talked about a potential.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I will upfront declare a potential conflict of interest is that I do moor my boat at one of these marinas for the seasons.
Okay. I'm highly supportive of all three. And as Commissioner said, we're highly supportive of trying to help the Santiam Canyon. You started to get into it a little bit, Sarah, but I just want to make sure we're not excluding the rest of the areas of the county, that there'll be other opportunities. Could you just go through that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, so for this year, we have 183,250 designated for business development grants, and the proposal we brought to you today is for 80,000 of that. So there will still be a remaining 103,250 for business development. And then in addition, we also have the community project grants, and the community project grants support rural communities throughout Marion County. Those will be coming before you next month for approval for various projects throughout the county. Our business development grants, to go back there real quickly, we're going to have the ongoing rolling cycle is still open. Last date for submission for funds this fiscal year is April 30th. So we're going to be working over the next few months with SEDCOR and within our communities to be promoting the availability of those funds to get in more applications. And then same with community project grants. We'll be running a second round as well so that we can really target the other communities and make sure that no one is going unserved.
Are there others currently in the pipeline that you're considering or reviewing at this time?
There are not. I've had a handful of conversations of people who have been referred from SEDCOR, breweries, etc., out of the Silverton, Mount Angel area, Donald area, a couple here locally in Salem, but they've not actually submitted. So we're going to do some intentional outreach to go back to those, so that our goal is to have a diverse pool of applicants that have impact throughout the county, so that we're equally distributing and helping to support the job growth. But the businesses, we're finding that the timing of the applications when we had due dates kind of bumped up against project implementation. So this year is a learning process for us of how are we marketing the program so that businesses are hearing about it as projects are starting. So we're going to focus a little bit more heavily on the marketing.
I appreciate
the
they be going out. I just want to make sure people know the opportunity and can take advantage of it. It's all designed to help people out and want to see it distributed. So it looks like you're well on top of it. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, one of the discussions we had at the last EDAB board meeting was how do we promote some of these things that are accomplished with our lottery dollars, and one of the items we discussed was potentially having signs put up at the marinas that this project was made possible through Marion County's lottery grants, and we could actually put the website on that sign. So people, there's some things we need to do over the next year or so that would help get the word out of how we've benefited our community.
Idea. Not trying to brag about ourselves, but you want people to know where it comes from and how it's done.
Right, exactly. You ready for a motion?
I am.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we consider, that we approve an order distributing Oregon lottery funds through the 2016-17 business development grants to the following: Detroit Lake Marina, $35,000, Canes Marina, $20,000, Santiam Ice Company, $25,000.
And I'll second the motion. So it's been moved and seconded. The motion just presented to approve our Oregon Video Lottery funds has been presented to us today. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just again, Mr. Chair, I want to clarify that there's a potential conflict of interest, is that I do moor my boat at one of the marinas.
Do I have to make a potential that I'd like to? No.
Yeah. You are, I'm sure you moor yours in someplace.
Anyway, okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
I'll call a question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, Sarah, all of you for all the work you do. The next item's very much the same two items. We consider, it's under Public Works, consider an order approving an application for a special assessment of open space, OS case 16001, Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon. And Joe Fenimore, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Joe Fenimore. The Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon applied for special assessment of open space land on 430 acres in an EFU zone located on Deekman Lane, southeast in Staten. The state law required the application to be processed in the same manner as a comprehensive plan amendment. As such, the matter was referred to the Marion County Planning Commission, who conducted a public hearing on December 6, 2016, and made a recommendation to the board that the request be approved. The board held a public hearing on January 11, 2017, and after considering all the information in the record, approved the request. In order to complete the process, the board must approve an order. Your options today are to approve the order in front of you, direct staff to prepare a modified order, or take no action at this time. Staff recommends you approve the order before you to grant the application for open space special assessment. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
No, I think we covered this last week pretty thoroughly.
Well, then I have a new, I'm going to support both, don't take me wrong, but I just don't know that in this that we discussed enough, with agriculture being our number one industry in Marion County, we ought to give a little more weight to projects that take prime farmland out of production. That's how I'd say it.
Right.
Not gonna change my mind here, but just notice for the future, I'm gonna weigh it more heavily. And if we're supposed to protect farmland, it doesn't mean just from development, it means to be able to use as farmland, in my way of thinking.
That's
So,
good point, Mr. Chair, and I know one of the properties was actively being farmed, the other one was not.
Right.
Right.
anyway, I would accept a motion for this first one on 16001.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we accept an order approving an application for special assessment of open space, OS case number 16001, Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon.
I'll second the motion. So the motion has been moved and seconded to approve case 16001, a special assessment of open space for Grand Ronde Community. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. The next one, much the same. Consider an order approving an application for special assessment of open space, case 16002, Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon. Again, Joe?
Once again, Commissioners, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community applied for open space special assessment. This property is about 410 acres in an EFU zone located on North C&M Highway, and actually is east of State in a ways. Once again, state law required the application to be processed in the same manner as a comprehensive plan amendment. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on December 6, 2016, and issued a recommendation that the board approve the request. The board held a public hearing on January 11th. After considering all the information in the record, approved the request. In order to complete the process, the board must approve an order. Your options, once again, are to approve the order in front of you today, direct staff to prepare a modified order, or take no action at this time. Staff recommends you approve the order in front of you today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there questions?
No. Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve an order for an application for special assessment of open space, OS case number 16-002, Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon.
And I'll second the motion. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Again, the motion was to approve the order that grants a special assessment. Hearing no further comment, call a question. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion passes. Order will be approved. All right, I don't know, we have a continuation of a public hearing. We normally do those public hearings at 9:30, and this is a little different in continuation, but I'm gonna go ahead and just either take a break or fill in this additional 9 minutes till then. What I would like to do, and for CCTV, I'll go ahead and read the places we'll be together in the following week. So just give a little gap there, and then I'll start. The next we have together is today at 2:30 at Capital Community Television. We'll have a CCTV taping having to do with the extension service. That'll be at the CCTV office, 575 Trade Street in Salem. Tonight, 6 o'clock at the Viticulture Center, 215 Dokes Ferry Road, Northwest in Salem, is the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments annual meeting and dinner. And tomorrow's a great opportunity for people out in the, I don't know whether you call it East County, but the Silverton, Mont Angel area, to meet with us. We do this quarterly. We do other areas every month, but it's a city, schools, and county quarterly breakfast at Leona's Bakery and Cafe, 415 South Main in Mont Angel. I mentioned they're open to the public and available. So if somebody'd like to come by and talk with us or talk with your other local officials, that's available. Then at 9:30, we come back to Salem. We have a work session having to do with dog licensing. That'll be in the Silverton Conference Room, 555 Court Street, Northeast in Salem on the 5th floor. Monday, 8:30 to 9, calendar review, Silverton Conference Room. And then at 9 o'clock, a management update, a weekly meeting we have to discuss things around the county. That'll be at Silverton Conference Room, again, 555 Court Street, 5th floor. Next Wednesday, 9 o'clock, our weekly board session here in the Senator Hearing Room, 555 Court Street, Salem, 1st floor. And then we go to Woodburn for one of the monthly meetings I was describing, with Woodburn Marion County meeting at Luisa's Taqueria, 523 Front Street in Salem. So you look like you're ready to go. I'd just as soon wait till 9:30 just because I want to. Let's see where we can go. Oh, I can do a personal thing. I have this bit of a spot on my head, and I decided last week not to, well, I didn't decide not to cover it up. I was just late. I had some comments that I wasn't as handsome as normal. I'm sorry, that's just the way I heard it. And what that is that's the penalty you pay for not wearing your sunscreen. So I'll do a public service announcement at this time. If you don't want to look like me, wear your sunscreen. Is that like a commercial? Should you get paid, American Cancer Society, somebody?
Yeah, but they have a lot of nice hats when you're fishing too, I think, that you could wear.
Oh, I thought you were going to suggest a mask, but that's something different.
It's interesting that you said that, because I know going to a dermatologist, he said that I should be putting on sunscreen, at least 30 every day, like it was shaving lotion.
Oh, just slathered on? Yeah.
I have a hard time doing that, especially when it's 10 degrees or snowy, and but it does make sense that the sun gets to our skin all the time.
Then changing subjects, unless you have more to say. I'll get you.
I'm pretty quiet these days.
Yeah, I'll get you some 70 for Christmas next year, so you'll have it available, something really good. Is there 70? I don't even know that, but.
Oh, there probably is. Yeah.
The other, and until Gloria stops me, I want to tell you about what I'm going to do Friday in just general terms. I've been on a committee at DLCD that's they're supposed to come up with methods to force people out of their cars. I don't agree with the concept at all. Don't think it has any real benefits, but certainly is a threat to the economic vitality of our community and the lives of our people. Nobody else takes it serious, and that should tell me something. But I'm going to St. Helens and just ask them not to, and at least let them think about what it really means. They have all these fancy techniques. They've taken a mandate that says should in their goals, should come up with alternative means of transportation and lower vehicle miles traveled. They don't give alternatives to it, and I think that they've changed the word should to shall, and they've instituted a procedure where, Kevin, you're more interested in that. But But they've instituted a procedure that will force local governments to comply with their wishes, and I find it horribly offensive. So, that didn't take as long as I thought.
No.
And I hope I'm more effective with them than I am with you, but,
No,
I'm
you're,
concerned about it.
I've been following, alongside of you, this issue, and we all each have our individual areas of expertise that we're working on, and you do a great job in that, and I think that, you voice your opinion as well as I think the majority of the board in those areas. I probably, this probably is a good time for me. I wasn't gonna say anything, but I think I will. This morning, there was an article in the newspaper about a situation that I participated in last Friday and made some poor choices of some words in a joke that I put up, and I sincerely apologize for making, for not making, I guess, for not considering the impact of the words that I used. And I really do apologize for that and for offending those that I may have offended. And I sincerely take the work of what we do in this community, especially with domestic violence and the Hope for Safety Center and Safety that Jane Downing and their crew works over there, our DA's office that works really hard on prevention and follow up on those areas. And I just want to say on the record today that I apologize for those misuse of the wrong words, and I think it's a reminder for all of us during these times to really consider and choose the words that we use wisely when we're interfacing with each other individually as well as in the public. So I hope that will be something that I've learned and will continue to try to improve myself as I move forward, Mr. Chair. So thank you for letting me do that.
I don't know if I let you, but thank you for your comments. We still have a couple minutes. Did you want to drag it out any further?
We got 2 minutes.
See, this is where I can get in trouble so
So-
easy. I was going to say, maybe you want to tell a joke, but
No, I think I'll,
pass, huh?
yeah.
Gloria, let's turn to you to fill in 2 minutes. Before we get started, perhaps you could, and Brandon will be, tell us the procedure we followed so far on this hearing that will be coming up in about a minute and a half.
I'm sure the Board of Commissioners held the land use hearing last week on this application, and upon the appeal of the applicants of certain conditions, the matter was continued to this week, and the record was left open for either further testimony or further information to be provided to the board before they make their final decision. Once the board does make their final decision, it would close the, well, there are certain options, and right now we're up against a time deadline, and the applicants did agree to extend the time deadline to today for the decision. So if there were any further continuances, obviously it would require an additional extension of time. Otherwise, the board will have the option to make its determination to either approve the application, to modify the conditions, or to deny the application. And then following that, the applicant, of course, has their rights of appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, should they have further issues with the board's decision today.
And you probably said it, but this is a continuation. Anything that was said prior still is in the record, and we just continue from
Absolutely,
the
and
point
because the
stopped.
record is still open, Mr. Chair, that new information could come in today.
So someone tried to
Okay.
steal my gavel. I
think-
don't know what that means.
I know what it means.
So I will reopen the case, the public hearing having to do with an appeal of a hearings officer's decision denying a partition, case 16014 Kaufman, clerk's file 5719. And Brandon Reich and Cindy Schmidt are here. We have some people that wish to speak again, or speak. I want to say how I want this to go, and it will, it is continuation, but a little different order than normally if that hadn't been continued. We'll start with Brandon, Cindy as our staff, discussing anything relevant to the procedure. Then I'm going to give the applicant or his attorney an opportunity to speak again. We will take testimony from those that have signed up that would like to, and then it'll come back to staff, and hopefully we'll be able to make a decision. So with that, Brandon, Cindy, would you go ahead and begin?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Brandon Reich, staff representing the Planning Division of Public Works. Ms. Roy described the background of this case, so I won't present that at this time, but this is a continuation of a public hearing from last week to partition a 9-acre parcel in an acreage residential zone. At the hearing last week, a number of issues were identified. 2 appear to have been resolved based on the applicant's testimony. The private easement that crosses the subject property from the Canyon Street right-of-way to the north to serve the new proposed parcels, and the ability to evaluate and mitigate for stormwater impacts through the existing stormwater permitting process. And it appears to planning that now essentially 2 issues remain unresolved, but staff will review additional evidence in the record been added today and present argument that these may able to be resolved. The first is fire district standards. Marion County Fire District performed a site visit to Canyon Street and determined that the existing roadway is accessible to their equipment. Planning staff would consider this issue resolved and won't suggest any roadway improvements based on fire district road standards. The second issue, county local access road standards exist in the county engineering standards, and applying these standards would ensure that adequate access to the property would satisfy the requirements of the Marion County Comprehensive Plan. The transportation system policy that limits the creation of new parcels on local access roads can be satisfied by requiring the roadway be improved to county engineering standards for a local access road. These standards can be described in a moment here in detail by the county engineer, Cindy Schmidt. And I understand there may be a proposal today from one of the commissioners to apply these standards in a modified way to this application that would still meet the county engineering standards. Briefly, before I finish, or the last thing I want to mention is I've added to the record some pictures of Canyon Street. Well, the first one is on Canyon Street facing 70th, what the intersection looks like. And then the other pictures are traveling down Canyon Street to the west to the end of the pavement. In the record today added is a letter from the applicant's representative with some findings / recommendations for conditions of approval. There is a letter from their engineer, the applicant's engineer, regarding Canyon Street. And there is a letter to me from Paula Smith regarding Canyon Street access for the fire district. I'll let the applicant's attorney speak to the letter he submitted. And the final thing in the packet, or in the information today, is 2 pages from the county engineer that contains a proposal for a way to modify the requirement to pave or gravel the entirety of Canyon for 16 foot wide. There's a modified proposal to do some improvement just adjacent to the subject property, and then a turnout at Canyon and 70th, which the county engineer can describe in more detail.
Okay, I think I'm going to interrupt now because I want to lay out on the table some ideas that I had. I will say for the record, I met with county staff yesterday, went over the files, the pictures, and tried to come up with, in my limited view, something that seemed reasonable. Now, just for let me just lay out what it is first, and I'm not sure this captures it or if it's something different. I'll ask you that question next. It's pretty simple. When I looked, and I wish we had nice maps to show, Commissioner, you're sitting next to me, so I'll be able to show you what I'm talking about. But it seemed reasonable. It seemed reasonable to me that this area that mirrors where the new construction is, it would be, I would like it to be filled out, and we talked about some, just a dug-in base rock gravel shoulder to make it wider. And I thought that was relevant to the application as presented, and made good sense in helping with the congestion that happens in a, I wish people could see how narrow this road really is. This is one picture. I'll try to hold it up for the camera just for a second. Coming off 70th, and we're talking 10 feet. So if we can get some, blocking my microphone, if we could get some additional space so people could get around safely and conveniently, I'd be in favor of that. That first section seemed pretty reasonable to me. The extension that would make it work, in my view, was that I should give a little background. I have a house in Tillamook, about 4 or 5 houses on it's probably 200 yards to the main road, and it's just gravel, and it's probably about 10, 12 feet of graveled area. And it's never been a problem, but it's about half the distance. So you can see a car coming, you can wait out on the main road, you can wait in the driveway, cars can come in and out. This is a little bit longer, so I was trying to address the situation just the same. And my first concern, and for your sake especially, this is 70th down here on the bottom. Right, there's a pickup in this picture on the main road, and then cars come into the narrow way. I felt like, and I do feel like, if this was widened a bit to allow a car coming off 70th, yeah, that would be it in a drawing sense. But if it was widened a bit where cars coming down could wait, you wouldn't leave somebody hung out on 70th. I also, in my background, was a garbage collector, and I don't know how you get trucks up. That would be the classic, a large truck or something just stuck out on 70th, maybe just a section. There's a safety issue and a convenience issue. So my proposal, just to sum it up, was a simple widening. I don't think it'd be horribly expensive. It asks, I can already hear the nexus questions or whatever, but it's a compromise, and I hope it would be considered as that, rather than road work on the entire length of Canyon Road, that they do that adjacent to the property owned by the applicant and address the foot of the road. That's as simple as it is, and I think it's, in my mind, a valid compromise, and let everybody come out ahead and better for the community out there. So with that, Cindy, a question. You've given me this. Is this the old or the current that you propose?
This is the my best display of what I think we discussed yesterday in terms of your proposal. The only thing, 2 things that you did not mention that the drawing shows is on that first page in the blue circle is what was proposed by applicant already, and I think we had discussed that should go ahead with the 18-foot paved
I'm sorry, I didn't
turnaround.
catch that, but I think I agree with it, but go ahead.
Okay, there was that item, and then the very left red circle refers to the non-remonstrance agreement at such time as if there's any further development along the roadway, the owner of that parcel would need to either build the county section or their share of the county section,
Okay.
depending on who's adding the additional traffic.
I think, just for my sake, what I just saw this, so, and I didn't interpret, I thought this was 70th here. This is the property that we described, so that is what we discussed yesterday.
Yes. Yeah, the first drawing just simply shows from their parcel. It does not show the length of canyon going off the right side of the page.
And then the additional
to
is what you felt, from what I described, would be safe to get people off the road, to allow people to go out and let traffic flow. This is,
Correct. Keep it in mind, it's a little bit of a conceptual, because we didn't have actual survey data to work from or anything. But the idea here is that we show a regular passenger vehicle theoretically sitting at the stop line on waiting to turn onto 70th. And then you see it's called labeled a SU-30 vehicle, and you can kind of see where they would track in order to be able to get around that car sitting there waiting to get on 70th. And an SU-30 is just what our configuration we use that replicates something that's the size of a UPS delivery van, a garbage truck, something like that, a little bigger than a passenger vehicle. And that's the kind of room it would take for them to make that turn and stay on some kind of a surface, and then be able to pause and wait till any oncoming vehicles coming down Canyon can be out of the way, and then they could proceed up Canyon.
So, just different than we talked about yesterday. We thought maybe 50, 60 feet. You've given thought and think it takes 80 to accomplish what I want to there. That's what this
I
says.
think we're still in that 50 to 60 length. Again, this is just a conceptual of assuming that that widest part of it would still be about 18 feet wide. 20 is desirable, but 18 is manages to accommodate the turn and then just taper it back in. So from the edge of pavement on 70th, we're still in the order of 50 to 60 feet, somewhere.
And then
in
just for the record, this is not hard surface. It's simply the gravel. It is a good base and some gravel and just a wider width for cars to be off the mud.
I think part of it can be gravel. Given that there's going to be paving going on, it really would be preferable to pave that radius area, because as vehicles turn on it, their tires basically will work the surface of a gravel surface, and they will kind of loosen that up. So generally, we'd like to have at least that approach paved for a distance, and then that taper and that additional widening could go back to gravel, or it could all be paved. Cost difference would be fairly minimal for this small amount of area.
All right. I didn't picture it being paved. I hear you, and one of the things I was thinking of is, and we discussed this yesterday, most cars or vehicles be coming in, not dragging rocks out, but I know they would eventually push material onto the little bit of pavement on Canyon Street now, but anyway, I don't know where I feel on that one, but I know what you're saying. Questions or comments on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this is the first I got a chance to see this.
Sure.
Obviously, I wasn't able to participate in that meeting yesterday, but one of the things that I just, from a neighborhood standpoint and livability and safety, obviously safety first, this makes sense to improve this area that's closest to 70th Avenue, because there's current citizens that would benefit from that, as well as the additional traffic that's upstream. I have a concern about requiring improvements upstream, right? If we're gonna put any demands, or whatever you want to call it, to make improvements to Canyon Street, it would make sense to have them move those additional improvements closer to 70th Avenue, because there's more traffic potential down there, because that's where the i.e. if all the residents are trying to leave at once, you'd only have a couple up here, but you've got 5 or 6 down here. So to do improvements upstream, I don't think benefits the neighborhood and the safety as much as whatever we were going to require them to do in addition to paving in and out of their extension. I think we would want to apply those benefits up downstream for the citizens. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but that's the question they're bringing up. What are they responsible for, the whole street? Under this proposal, they're responsible for that on their frontage already. If there's road further, that left circle, if there's issue later, they agree to participate on their point.
Right.
But this takes care of right in front. It's also, if you saw the same maps or pictures and look through it, I'm not gonna take time, there's a lot of congestion right at the end that this would help with. But then if we take care of the one downstream, the alternative is to ask them to do it all like the original county plan was, and I don't think that was reasonable.
Well, let me ask a question then to clarify, Mr. Chair, if I may. So the right-hand red circle that says in the box, widen existing travel way to a minimum of 16 feet per pavement to gravel acceptable from eastern property line west to connect to proposed widening fire turnaround. My point being is that red circle there is requiring an improvement of an existing road that's already there from their property line back upstream. My thought is if we're going to require anything, that improvement would be better applied downstream where there's more traffic, because these are the people that everybody would benefit from that. Now, I know that it wouldn't be just applied to these property owners, but I think as a good neighbor, if we were going to require anything for safety purposes, it would be good to benefit safety of the whole community where they could pass or do things downstream on the road. Does that make, am I clear on that? Oh.
Yeah, I want to make one point, then I'll let Cindy and I think Gloria want to say something. What this requires is there's always 10 feet, so they would gravel for this length 6 feet. So it's directly attributable to the property, and it seems a reasonable amount of work. Cindy, I think you wanted to say something. Or I should
Yes,
start with
and
you. Does that answer?
But we're not going to require any gravel extension or widening down.
Only if you
Stream.
want to, and that's the argument. That
Gloria's got.
Gloria? I give you both, but Gloria, go ahead.
Just, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, I just want to remind you, because the public hearing is still open, that a lot of your discussions here are kind of moving on into deliberations, and you haven't had the full
Okay.
presentation and the comments from the applicant, and so I would just urge you to allow the full information to come in, and then maybe you'd have additional questions that you could ask the applicant and staff.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify what this diagram was asking for, that we were being presented here from staff. Am I right in that we're asking on this diagram from here back to add gravel, like you said, to widen it to 16 feet?
yes, that is correct as a minimum. Actually, just to clarify too, in terms of your comment about the most added value from a safety standpoint is definitely down, closer to the 70th, and you're going to have more traffic in terms of more congestion, and the safety benefit, of course, is greater there. The normal requirement in a development of this nature is that all the frontage of the parcel does get improved to county standards at this time of development and partitioning. So normally, we would require that they improve all of their frontage. The proposal is only require them to improve the part of their frontage that leads up to where their second driveway will be. And then to just commit to doing the rest if at some point in the future there's additional development. The issue, though, is really, the issue is less about what they would maybe need to do along their frontage, because that does need to be done irrespective of the volume there in order to meet basic standards. And we've sort of compromised on what they would need to do there by allowing 16 feet minimum of gravel when they're going to be adding on 18 feet of pavement. So you kind of have surfaces changing size too, which has its own little safety component. So there's some flexibility. This is conceptual in terms of what really gets built out there. But the issue is a separate issue about is there or should there be any improvements downstream on Canyon from their property towards the intersection at 70th. And that is I think the bigger point of debate on whether that is appropriate to make them do with this particular action.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right, Brandon, Cindy, go ahead and continue if you have anything.
I have nothing further at this time.
All right, and we'll see you in a bit, and then if we could have the applicant and his representative in it. So if you would, please start with your name and address, and then whatever you'd like to say.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner. Alan Sorum, 250 Church Street, Southeast Salem, Oregon, Suite 200. I'm attorney for the applicant. With me, Kent Kaufman.
And yeah, I am the applicant, Kent Kaufman, and I am at 6895 Canyon Street, Southeast Salem.
So we've had an opportunity. We just kind of looking at this in real time, the proposed modifications, and I'll just cut to the chase. I think we're supportive at a concept level of the proposed modifications to the conditions of approval. They're consistent with some of the modifications that were suggested by the applicant to planning staff earlier this week, as far as having some frontage improvements between the proposed hammerhead and the eastern boundary of the property. Applicant had not proposed the, what I'm going to call the apron
Yeah.
improvements to 70th Avenue. You know, in hearing staff's report and commissioners' discussions of logic there is an understanding of that. One question that we would like to be able to nail down is, can we go ahead and comply with staff's understanding of what this concept is within the existing right-of-way? Certainly, this isn't an instance where we would want to have to go ahead and do any kind of condemnation or any kind of expansion of the right-of-way on somebody else's property that isn't controlled. And then there, in addition to Mr. Kaufman, there is another party that's impacted by this. Mr. Kaufman is the applicant, but the property owner is another individual, and he's not able to be here with us this morning. So rather than being able to, you know, completely sign off and say, go ahead and close the hearing and the record, and you know, we can 100% support it, my request this morning is going to be, I think all the public comment and testimony from the applicant will be done, but we would ask the record to be left open for a short period of time, just to allow us to make sure all the necessary parties see this proposed design and are comfortable with that condition of approval as it looks. And so that, in a nutshell, is kind of where we sit. I will speak to one of the questions that Mr. Cameron suggested, and it's a very practical comment. You're looking and you're saying, well, if I'm a contractor and I got to hire somebody out to do all these these projects, there's going to be a line item for expanding the roadway from 10 feet, to 16 feet, and it's going to be for about 300 feet. Can I just go ahead and have that, should I have that line item, that expenditure, the locus of it be adjacent to the intersection of Canyon and 70th rather than downstream, to use Commissioner Cameron's words? I would support having its location adjacent to the frontage of the property for a few reasons. As staff noted, that is customary as far as the obligation of the property owner to expand their own existing frontage. Not all of the parcels that are adjacent or will potentially take access off Canyon Street between the subject property and 70th Avenue are less than 4 acres, which means there is a potential for one or more land divisions between our boundary and Canyon Street. So future improvements could potentially occur between our property and the intersection with Canyon Street. And so there's, kind of a history there. There's a logic as to why do you improve the frontage with your property, and also it addresses the potential for other downstream development and other improvements. Lastly, I spoke at length regarding some of the constitutional issues, and I think there's a much stronger nexus for having the location of those improvements to be adjacent to the frontage than necessarily downstream. So, with that, I think we'll kind of evaluate and say, do all of these proposed conditions of approval, do they seem satisfactory and reasonable? Our initial assessment is that they are, and would love to be supportive of staff in that regard, but just not entirely comfortable of closing the record without reviewing these new conditions with the other party. With me is Mr. Kaufman. I think he can, if I haven't spoken for him, he's here. Do you have any other comments?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Kaufman is the owner, but there's another party associated with it. That was my point. Yeah.
And one more comment, just in regards to where the improvements or the gravel shoulder, that portion, where that would be added. I understand the thought of putting it closer towards Canyon, but I guess my concern would be is that I think in the statement that Paula Smith, I believe, the fire marshal, made, she would prefer it to be in that section along my frontage, and I'm speaking for her in a sense in saying I believe when she was there, her comment was to me that there's enough pullouts prior to my property that she wasn't as concerned about that. She was more concerned about along my property
And
frontage.
being able to turn around in there at the end.
Yeah, or being able to pull off in that area.
Okay.
There's a few other prior to my property. There's a gravel shoulder right adjacent to 70th, and then a little further up the hill, there's actually a paved, kind of a wider paved area at the top of the hill. So there's kind of two, I guess you could say, potential pull-offs prior to my property. Once you reach my property, there is none unless you would pull into the driveways. So I believe that was her logic for it. But again, that's just per our conversation that we had on site.
All right, just a question, Ellen, for you. I haven't had a chance to read this, and I'm not going to pretend. Is there anything new or unique that you want us to see here?
No, Commissioner, it was just to clarify, once in during last week's, or it was last week's hearing, there was a question, what is the grade of Canyon Street as you travel the entire length of that? And so the engineer just submitted a brief letter to speak to that issue, is that the Canyon Street, it is within the 12% grade. It kind of goes up to that maximum point, but that question has been resolved. And then I just wanted to put down in paper kind of to clarify what our suggested conditions of approval are. So potentially we could do a third revision to that in light of the parent staff support for what I see here, just so that it's clear on the record that both staff and the applicant support the final language of the conditions of approval. And I don't know if that needs to be done. I mean, I might defer to Councilor Roy as to the exact process, if that should be done before the record is closed, or if that can be done as a process of like preparation of final findings and conditions of approval. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, at this point, if there were, if they want to leave the record open, then you would not be able to make a final determination, so you couldn't necessarily start preparing findings because you haven't made your final determination. So, but if they wanted to keep the record open, it would require another continuation and an extension, a brief extension, to give them time to come back and see if they had, if the other party involved had any other comments on this. Your other alternative is you could go ahead and close the hearing and make your determination today as to that, the conditions you want to impose if you want to approve this application and go forward. And at that point, they would have to appeal if they disagreed with the application. So perhaps a short continuance along with a opportunity to come back would.
I don't know that I don't feel that we have any desire to come back and speak again before the board. Maybe we can just have like a 2-minute.
Leave the record open.
Yeah, leave the record open was where I was going, but maybe we can just have a 2-minute or break where I could discuss with my client as to, some of those thoughts, and we can speak to what our request is. I mean, I apologize for, sometimes we can get it all worked out before, but.
I'm going to interrupt. I had that idea that you would want some time to discuss it and see what it means. I don't quite know how we can get it firm enough on paper, but it sounds like we're real close, agreeing in concept. There could be some particulars. So if you're asking for a 10-minute recess, this might be a good time.
Yes, Chair.
And I think you wanted to say something, Commissioner.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify what the conditions that are being proposed is on these 2 new pages, correct? These
Yes.
two that they're going to consider? Okay.
Well, let's try that. Let's, it's 10 o'clock. Let's reconvene at 10:10, and it'll help me to talk with Gloria a little bit to see where I think we can go and wrap this up to everybody's benefit.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, so see you again at 10:10. On a public hearing having to do with Canyon Road. Gloria Allen?
I'll let Counselor Roy speak as to the proposed procedure for the request.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Right now, the applicant is proposing that we leave the record open for 1 week to give them time to review the proposal, get comments back, work with the staff, and then bring this back to the Board of Commissioners for their final decision in 2 weeks' time. And the applicant is proposing they would extend the 180-day timeline for an additional 14 days to follow this procedure, but they will have all of their information in 1 week by the close of the record. And planning staff can discuss any more aspects to that in terms of timing.
That is agreeable, and that's it. So I can, unless there's further questions for me, I'll just turn it over to Brandon.
No, just mention, part of that proposal is to close the hearing today and leave that record open for 1 week.
That is correct. Thank you, Brandon.
Mr. Sorm and I, we did talk about the conditions of approval. We took a really early look at some of the basic conditions that we'd put on a partition, and there's very general agreement to those conditions. And so it's possible with that 2 weeks from now that we'd actually have a list of conditions maybe for the board, just to know that we've looked at them together.
I like the sound of that. So, Commissioner, if you could, would you make the motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we close the public hearing, leave the record open for 1 week, and set a date of 2 weeks for final consideration.
Second that. Further discussion? The hearing won't be continued, it'll just be an action item on a decision, is that correct? Or just
Correct.
That's correct.
So it'll just be an action item with this and yes or no. Assuming everybody agrees, it sounds like they
So
will. whether
I think then the motion would be, instead of a continuation, for further action, for an action item, the
That
final
sounds-
statement, yeah.
All right, further discussion? And call a question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. I thank you all for your cooperation, trying to make some.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've already read the items we'll be at next. I better find the agenda, make sure there's nothing else in that. I don't see anything. Anything else you'd like to add this morning, Commissioner?
It's been a busy week, busy last week, so, no, I think, I did say, I think I told you in management update that I went to the Public Health Modernization meeting on Friday and learned quite a bit about what was going on, and looking forward to seeing where that will go in the long term for our public health department.
There's some background noise here, but I don't have anything too serious to say, but I'd just like to know that we are modern here in Marion County. Is that your conclusion?
We're moving towards modernization, yeah,
Heading the right way. Well, that's as good as it gets in my world.
yeah,
All right. Anything else?
I'm good, thank you.
Then we found my gavel. We'll call this